Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to talk on uh, roles of calcium and hormones in bone metabolism. This will be the last topic of your syllabus, and this topic will be completed in 2 lectures. So before we go directly into the roles of calcium hormones in bone metabolism, we'll just go through the basics of bone classification, structure formation, growth, and resorption, so that we can better understand the role of calcium and hormones in bone metabolism. So let's get started. Bone is a special connective tissue which consists of three major components: the cellular component, organic matrix, and inorganic cells. The major cells present in the bones are osteoblasts and osteoclasts, and in addition to this, there is mature uh, osteoblasts called osteocytes, and other cells called osteoprogenitor cells, which will be the precursor cell for the above cells. The organic matrix is mainly formed by proteins, and type 1 collagen forms uh, contributes 90% of the protein. The inorganic matrix or inorganic component is mainly consists mainly of calcium and phosphate salts, where it forms a structure called hydroxyapatites. Okay, the human body contains 206 major bones, and these are the functions of bone. Bone, as we know, is the structural framework of the skeleton. So being that it is involved in the maintenance of external form, it provides a structural framework for attachment of muscles, and the rigidity the bone provides permits locomotion and movement, and it gives us the weight bearing support. It also protects the internal organs, and finally, but not the least, uh, it is involved in the maintenance of calcium ion and phosphate ion concentration in the fluid. So bone can be simply classified based on their shapes, and according to the shape, bones are classified into these 4 groups: the long bones, short bones, flat bones, and irregular bones. As the name of the bones indicates, the long bones are bones which are relatively long. That means it has a relatively higher length compared to the width or breadth of the bone. Whereas in case of short bones, the breadth and length of the bone is of similar dimensions. In case of flat bones, these are thin and relatively broad. And the last one, the irregular bones, they do not have any specific shape, and they have relatively complex shapes when compared to the other 3 uh, types of bones. So in the further discussion, we'll take the long bone as an example. So you see the structure of a long bone is a representative example for the structure of bones in general. As you see here, this long bone consists of 3 parts: 2 epiphyses at the end of the bone. So this is the proximal epiphysis, and this is the distal epiphysis, and the portion between these 2 epiphyses is called diaphysis. And the bone is covered by a membranous layer called the periosteum, and the periosteum again consists of 2 layers: the outermost fibrous layer, and the second layer is called the cellular layer. As the name indicates, the cells will be present mainly in this cellular layer. The inside of the bone is supplied sufficiently with blood vessels, and the inside of this bone is filled with uh, marrow, and the region filled by this marrow is called the marrow cavity. Just below the periosteum, there is a type of bone tissue called compact bone. Uh, in general, all bones is likely to have this compact and spongy bone. Spongy bones are also called trabecular bones, and compact bones are also called cortical bones. The cortical or compact bones are denser than the spongy bone. As you see here, in case of spongy bone, they have a porous structure, so the density is relatively low when compared to the compact bone. The diaphysis is separated from the epiphysis uh, normally by a line called epiphyseal line. Here will also be one epiphyseal line. So there are two epiphyseal lines. So the ends of the bones, which are called epiphyses, are separated from the diaphysis by the epiphyseal line. And this epiphyseal line is a remnant of the cartilage which were initially present during the early formation of the bone, that we will see in more details in the coming slides. Again, this is a more detailed description of the bone. This region is the compact bone and this is the spongy bone. The compact bones are formed by parallel regular structure called osteon. And osteon is formed by formation of concentric rings of collagen fibers around a canal, central canal called Haversian canal. And and between these concentric lines there are portions, regions called lacunae. These are depressions, and these portions are regions are occupied by these bone cells. These are nothing but cells. As you can see here, this outer layer of the bone, that is periosteum, is formed by an outer layer of osteoblast, which forms new bone matrix, and this new bone matrix gets uh, converted to the mature matrix. Once this osteoblast gets penetrated inside this matrix, and it gets differentiated into these osteocytes. So osteocytes are nothing but mature osteoblasts which are separated from the layer of osteoblast cells and are impregnated within the bone matrix. Again, inside of these, the inside surface of this compact bone is formed by this endosteum, and this endosteum portion again consists of uh, bone cells, and here some of the bone cells get differentiated into osteoclasts, and these osteoclasts uh, will bind and dissolve the bone or erode the bone from inside it. So osteoclasts are the bone dissolving or bone resorbing cells, where osteoblasts are the bone forming cells. Okay, coming to the bone formation and growth. Uh, bone is formed by replacing uh, other connective tissues like cartilage or other connective tissue, and this process of replacing connective tissues with bone is called ossification. Now ossification may have two components: the formation of the bone matrix by the bone cells, and the deposition of minerals in the bone. Excuse me. And there are two forms of ossification depending upon the origin of the bone formation. One is called intramembranous ossification. Here, bone develops within sheaths or membranes of connective tissue, whereas in the another type, in endochondral ossification, bone replaces existing cartilage. So, as in the case of skull, there is intramembranous bone formation or bone ossification, whereas in limbs, the bones are formed through endochondral ossification. Most bone formation mostly occurs through endochondral ossification. So we will see in more detail the endochondral ossification. So this is the steps through which endochondral ossification takes place. First of all, the shape of the bone is modeled by this cartilage. So this is the approximate shape of the bone formed by the cartilage. So in the center of this model, these chondrocyte cells will get enlarged, And at the same time there will be calcification also, that is deposition of calcium ions. And because of this calcification the chondrocytes will die, and after that uh, bone forming cells, that is newly formed osteoblasts, will arrive at this bone model, and they will form new bones. These are called primary ossification centers. So you see in the outer layer of this diaphysis, new bone formation is there by the osteoblasts. After that, these blood vessels will get penetrated into this bone model, and along with that, the osteoblasts will also enter the bone model and start forming new bones, and it will form the primary ossification center, and the outer bone will become superficial bone initially, which will later mature into compact bone. After that, this formation of bones will continue, and because of the new formation of bone, the cartilage initially present here will be replaced by the bone. So most of the bone cartilage present here will be pushed towards the end or the epiphysis. And finally, there will be secondary ossification when there is penetration of the epiphysis by blood vessel as well as by osteoblasts. So at the epiphysis, secondary bone formation will take place, and this will keep forming at a very let's stage. This epiphyseal cartilage will be pushed towards the end of the epiphysis, which will then become the epiphyseal line. So it is known that the epiphyseal cartilage will also proliferate. At the same time, the proliferation of the cartilage, there will be formation of new bone material by the osteoblast. Here, the new bone formation leads to the increase in the length of the bone. The bone not only grows in length but also in the diameter, and the increase in the diameter of the bone occurs through the appositional growth of the bone. The increase in the diameter of the bone occurs because of the activity of the two types of cells, osteoclast and osteoblast. The activity of the osteoclast on the surface of the inside of the bone will lead to the dissolution of this internal layer of bone. At the same time, new bone will be deposited in the outer layer, so there will be increase in the internal diameter as well as in the external diameter. But when the bone gets mature in the adult stage, the relative diameter will be maintained by the uh, activity of the two types of cells. Okay, this will be the last slide for this lecture. Uh, and this is how bone resorption by osteoclast is brought about. Here, as you see here, this is the bone matrix. There is a small depression here, which is called the bone resorbing compartment, and this compartment will be sealed by the membrane of the osteoclast. Osteoclast is a multinucleated cell, and with the help of its membrane, it will seal this particular compartment or region. As you see here, this blue highlighted region is the seal compartment. So what happens is that this compartment will be acidified by pumping in proton into this particular seal region. At the same time, lysosomal enzymes will get dissolved in this seal compartment. So the low pH, because of the pumping in of proton, will lead to the dissolving of the inorganic components, that is calcium and phosphate salts, whereas the collagen will be hydrolyzed by the proteases which are active at low pH. So in that way, the bone matrix will be dissolved or resorbed, and the byproducts of the bone resorption will be absorbed by the uh, osteoclast through endocytosis and will be passed on to other osteoclasts, then finally to interstitial fluid. and byproducts of the bone resorption may be present in the urine also. So this will be the last slide of this first lecture of on bone metabolism.